One of the things we did see out of the Sens over the weekend was a loss to Detroit, but I'm more interested in the reaction to DeBrincat and the debate all last week about whether he should be booed or not. I don't suppose you were in the building. I don't know if you were standing booing your television or not. Any thoughts on the reaction to his return to Ottawa?
I am in the building on Tuesday.
The Craig Anderson night.
100%.
Okay.
I have 6 games this year I've already bought.
Nice.
Starts Tuesday, so I'll be there for the Andy night. If I was in the building, I'm booing him.
Okay.
Do I understand? He didn't want to get traded to Ottawa. He was traded, and he didn't want to stay here. He wanted to go elsewhere. But as a season ticket, paying guy, you've turned your back. So I would have booed him. 100%. That would have happened.
I just, as you said, he was traded here.
Yep.
And I was going to say against his will. We don't even know that that's
clearly.
When you're traded.
Yep.
You have no say in it. And at the risk of being labeled, perhaps correctly, a hypocrite, you have heard me on this podcast say repeatedly, it's stupid when Toronto boos Kessel. It's stupid when Toronto booed Phaneuf.
Ottawa boos Zdeno Chara.
Although he at least left as a free agent. My point with Kessel and Phaneuf is they were traded to Toronto, and then they were traded away from Toronto. Neither one demanded a trade. Neither one. And when I look at the DeBrincat thing, as granted, a non-Senators fan, is he was traded. It didn't appear to work. Pierre Dorian, I guess, pointed out, led the league in hit posts. Which was and then he just said, I'm probably not going to re-sign. Again, didn't demand a trade out. Obviously, the natural reaction is, well, if you're not going to re-sign, we have to trade you. That's fair enough. But I kind of look at it like the really hardcores on my Twitter feed are telling me it's not so much that he didn't want to be here, it's that he would only agree to sign long-term in Detroit, which made it hard for us to trade him and get enough for him. And I look at a guy like Claude Giroux, who did the exact same thing to the Flyers, said, I'll go to Colorado or Florida, and that's it. And then after that came to Ottawa. But he ended up coming to Ottawa, so we like him and we'll ignore, it didn't affect Ottawa, so it's okay.
Yeah.
And I sort of wonder if there isn't a line to be drawn there that, Giroux was ready to go home, and that's not what played out at the actual trade deadline.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but him coming to Ottawa, just to be clear, him coming to Ottawa was as a free agent.
Yep. But he did that to Philly.
I know.
He did the same thing.
But you can understand why Ottawa fans
don't care about that.
Well, would be detached from that.
Sure.
You're like, Giroux, you can't sign here because you only gave those options.
No. That's right. But I just want, if we're being real about this, if we're talking about this being professional hockey, a guy wanting to go where he wants to go.
Yeah.
Giroux did it once, right?
Yep.
I'll only go here and here from the trade deadline, and after that I'm going to sign to come to Ottawa. And DeBrincat did the same thing. If I'm leaving Ottawa, I'm probably only... You can trade me wherever you want, but I'm not going to sign long-term, which means, obviously, the trade value is very different.
Right, and I don't know. I'm not in Philadelphia at the time, right? And
remember, he also wasn't going to go till after game 1,000. That was a part of it right before the deadline.
It was the final game right at the deadline.
Yeah.
But it seemed kind of like, unlike with other people, and I don't want to get bogged down on Claude Giroux.
No. But
it was, I'm fine to go to those teams, or I'm fine to just stay here and play out the season.
Yep.
That's kind of the impression I got.
That he maybe wasn't in a rush to get out of Philly.
It wasn't like, hey, trade me away, this is terrible here. But DeBrincat
didn't say that either.
Right. And so, as I said to you before, he was traded here, and we talked about this a year ago, not even like 13 months ago, in his first time he met with the local media. Somebody said to him, hey, you're free to sign an extension. What's your interest in staying here? And to me, his answer was super telling at the time. He's like, yeah, we'll wait and we'll see, which is fine.
Sure.
That's it. But he's like,
I haven't played a game here yet.
He's like, they got a lot of shooters here.
Yeah, I do remember you bringing that up.
And that was right away an alarm, like a red flag going, yeah, you know what I do? They got guys in that position. I'm not going to be frontline guy. Like, I'm a left winger. I'm going to be behind Tkachuk. I think and so.
Don't you think? I guess this is a different argument. Don't you think a guy like Alex DeBrincat, and to his credit, Brady Tkachuk had an unreal season last year, more points than I ever thought that's what that guy was
going to. DeBrincat.
Right. But I never thought Tkachuk had that in him.
I also never thought that.
Tkachuk would be a very good player, but kind of 65 points and all the other things.
If he ever got to 70 points,
right,
I would have been over the moon. And we talked about that.
Right.
So, with all the intangibles he has.
And he's off to another killer start this year.
But if he's an 85-point guy and all the other things he brings, DeBrincat, you're the second-line left winger.
And I guess that's my question was going to be is when he rolled in here, shouldn't his mindset be, yeah, by the end of the year, I'll be your number one left winger.
His or the team's?
His. Because it didn't look like that's what, you know what I'm saying? Like he sort of rolled in behind, at that time, Brady Tkachuk is your number one left winger, hadn't yet shown what he did last year.
Was a 30-goal scorer the year before. He scored 30 on the final night.
Yeah, that's right.
The year before.
Yeah, that's right. All right. I had it in my head that last year was this huge breakout, and the year before had sort of been nothing wrong with it, but just...
Yeah, he was sort of a 30 guy the year before.
That's what I'm saying. 60, 65 point kind of guy.
And that's where he was.
Yeah.
That's where he was.
Last year was the big breakout.
Over 83.
But more points. He maintained the goals thing. He'd already hit the 30-goal thing.
And I think at this point now, you're disappointed if that guy scores less than 35 goals. Tkachuk, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming.
No.
To me, he's scored a couple goals already.
His hands appear to be better
from distance.
Than we thought.
He's getting other goals that make you think. And so
yeah,
I can understand the DeBrincat issue. That doesn't mean I, as a paying fan, have to go, yeah, man, I get it. And I don't think...
you can boo him. To me, it seemed like...
All I'm saying, too, here is I don't think he said, I'm only going to Detroit. We never were privy to the list, but it's sort of pretty widely spread that it was Detroit.
I'll sign with Detroit.
And then it was your tax-free states.
Yeah.
Right? It was your Nashville. It was your Vegas. It was your
Florida
Dallas.
teams.
It was your Florida teams. Those were sort of the teams that it was widely understood were on his list. And so when you start to look around, you're like, well, there's not a real Nashville maybe or Detroit are really the only viable trade partners in that list.
So let me just ask you then, because it's quite possible coming from my cheering for a big market, spend and pay what you want to get who you want. Is there a part of this that is that small market? He won't play here. He doesn't want to stay here.
100%,
we're feeling a little spurned by this.
Yeah, of course, man. There is a built-in feeling in this market, which is you look for the things that say, I'm not going to sign here.
Right.
I'm not going to sign here. I'm not going to sign here because it's Ottawa or it's Winnipeg or it's Edmonton or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
It's Buffalo. It's whatever those things are, right? That make you say, no, it's not a desirable. Ottawa's a desirable team for guys who are in their early 30s who have kids, and you're like, yeah, man, it's a great minor hockey system, and it's a big town, small town, and it's a great place to raise a family. Columbus.
Yeah.
So those sorts of things for the young guys, it's not, and you feel that, right? You go, we're gonna have to overpay. We're gonna have to overpay here. So there's always a bit, no matter what anybody says, there's a little built-in that you're that guy.
Anti-establishment kind of, we're going to have to fight above our weight.
Well, and we got to draft.
Yeah.
We got to draft and we got to develop from within and hope for the odd Claude Giroux.
Sure.
Right? Those sorts of things, right?
Who again has been better than, he's shown more than I thought he had left in the tank since he got here.
For sure.
So,
but you look at it's in terms of, and again, I can go in fully eyes wide open on the DeBrincat thing, which is, hey man, he was totally blown away to be traded by Chicago.
Yeah.
So he came to Ottawa, didn't have a choice in it, and then he was put here, not in the position where he was accustomed to. And that's sort of on Dorian. I'm not sure if Chicago didn't give him the option to speak to DeBrincat and say, hey, what are you thinking, right?
Probably not, right? He didn't have any rights at the time.
This is it, right? And so, but if you look at what's happened with Tarasenko this summer, and you bring him in, and you try and force him into the opposite wing, and you're like, just be smarter.
Either this was your guy or it wasn't, right? Or does he fit or doesn't he?
Why try and push him into something like this? Is an established cup-winning vet. Now
but I remember you saying on this podcast, and not just you, like I'm not trying to bury him. Like he apparently last year didn't really fit in, right? Like this is a young team, a lot of guys with some money and young single guys out doing their thing, and that he maybe not only wasn't getting the minutes that he would have preferred or the power play spot that he would have preferred. I don't think at the time that anyone on the team disliked him, but he wasn't one of those guys out singing Mr. Brightside on Friday night or whatever.
The
right?
Sanderson, Norris, Stutzla.
Yeah, the young group of guys living that sweet life with a couple of bucks in their pocket now and
buying the bar around.
Sure.
Yeah, no, and he is slightly above that group by a couple of years.
Yeah.
But had a wife and kid, right? Had a child.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't fit in as
maybe not perfectly into that timeline.
Right. I think everybody liked him.
Yeah.
I think he fit in.
And Stutzla, like they tried to make a big deal out of what he said at the beginning of the season. I didn't think it was quite as nasty as it was painted to sound, but Stutzla sort of said, if you don't want to be here, then don't be here. But
what he said was, you don't want to be here, we wish you good luck.
Right. I think he meant it.
I think he meant it too.
Yeah.
But people read into that and go, yeah, well, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, then fuck you, right? No.
Right. And so
we're trying to do something here. If you don't want to be a part of it,
this is it.
Carry on.
We do have the small market built-in inferiority complex, and that's a reality.
Yeah.
You can't debate it. It also then comes down to we are turning the corner.
Yes.
We hope.
Pretty clearly.
And so you go, why don't you want to be here? You don't like us. It's this big thing like when they went on that 07 Cup run and Alfredson was, for a very long time, a whipping boy here.
Yeah.
And then he was so great in that run, and you're like, I hope he becomes a citizen. I hope he stays here when he retires, right? And it's just like, I'm clutching my pearls and I'm rubbing my hands going, does he like us? Does he really like us?
Right.
And it shows, the small market mentality shows all the time, whether we like it or not.
That is sort of, and I'll that's why I wanted to ask you about it, man. When I watched that game on Saturday, where the DeBrincat thing came to a head, it felt a little, the mean man hurt my feelings.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But to me, I feel I don't feel any shame in that. Yeah. I don't turn my back on that.
Right.
So it's not just the small market, it's also the team is getting good.
Yeah.
And you've sort of turned away from both.
Right.
In our eyes.
Well, because the only thing left, like if the team is getting good, the only reason you didn't want to stay obviously isn't the team, right? It must be us. It must be the city. It must be the fans. You
got a bunch of young guys who you fit in with and whatever else, or didn't, but seemingly did.
Yeah.
Like he said, he's like, yeah, I saw Shabby across the ice, and he was sort of smiling and laughing at me on the video tribute.
Yes.
And so all those, like, I just think it's just he wanted. Again, I can understand that his wife is also from the Michigan area,
yep.
And with a young child, be close to its grandparents, all those things. Like, it makes sense on so many levels, but that doesn't mean that I don't go, man, we traded three picks for it.
Yeah.
And you then had an underwhelming year.
Yes.
And
which
then
you clearly did.
And then you left and we've sort of got a diminished return.
Yes.
I get to say, fuck you.
Yeah.
I get to pay my dollars and for one part of my day say, nah, you suck.
Do you think that's it? What, the next time he's back, does it happen again?
No. It's there may be a couple people, but I think it's greatly diminished moving forward.
It was greatly diminished by the second period.
Because the team was not doing well, right? And so
hard to keep the energy. I got to boo some other people right now.
Yeah, maybe we're in a black jersey. I'm not entirely sure.